Good afternoon, everybody. Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team for June 12th, 2025. We got some exciting stuff to talk about, I think. But before we get there, apparently somebody's confused out there. So I need to do this. Where were we? Back one more. Off to a good start, aren't I? Okay, here it is. This is what I call Steve's Rules of Engagement. Um, this is a public meeting of Minnesota government that has been properly posted for more than 3 days. This meeting is being recorded and it will be available to the public. You are not required to provide your name or any personal slash private data whatsoever. And in the event you decide to turn on your camera, be advised that the body of law in Minnesota strongly indicates that photos and videos of individuals collected during public meetings are public data, not private data. And you don't even want to ask why I've had to do this, but there we go. On our agenda, as you can see there, it is a run through as was previously published. Are there any motions to change anything on the agenda? Going once, going twice. And with that, I got a fast clicker today. The floor is in the hands of Kelly. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. We're excited to give you updates about a variety of things that have happened in the last few months. Specifically, our work to present in front of the CGA in February, I believe that was it? April? Can't remember. But anyways, we presented there. And then also we have a lot of work coming down the line with marketing to start bringing the system online and as well to bring more operators online across the state. So we'll be getting into that more a little bit later.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Um, as for me, quick notes for you. You're tired of seeing quick notes, and that's no problem because maybe quick notes will go away here shortly. Next leadership meeting is Friday, June 20th at 1 p.m. The next large group meeting, pencil in right now because that more likely than not will actually be the last official meeting of a Minnesota government sponsored event like this thing is. And that'll be on Thursday, September 25th at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. If you want to attend either of those meetings, we send out on the FuzionView website. It gets posted there. I send out a note that provides the calendar connect. And you can always send me an email at chair@mgacepc.org if you would like to attend any of those meetings. So be more than happy to help you get there. That takes us down to the CGA event report with Kelly, Adam, and Bob. I believe that's a tag team event. So, Kelly?
Yeah, I can open it up and then Adam and Bob, feel free to chime in. It was in April. We were there in the second week of April in Orlando for the Common Ground Alliance conference this year, and we were able to present at a workshop educational session about the progress of this project and of the next iteration of this FuzionView, and then also implementing this in GSOC system through with the help of OCC, obviously. It was a great, well-attended event, and there were lots of really good questions at the end from all kind of aspects. So we really covered, the project overall, the timeline that has passed, and that the development schedule that we are on and finishing up, and what is in store for the future. And then talked a little bit about implementation and our plans to, at the state level, really move in a slow and steady fashion in terms of bringing more and more people online with their data so that across the state so that we can start making this a reality. Bob, Adam, do you want to offer in any additional information?
And the only other thing I would add is the room was filled, which at CGA, that's a big deal. I mean, we had very high attendance and everybody stayed right up until the very last second.
And into the hallway.
And into the hallway. And absolutely tons of questions, tons of interest. It's clear that the industry is ready for this conversation, that they're ready for this product. I do still believe implementation and onboarding is going to be really slow. It's just the way that things move with new technologies like this. But clearly, there is universal support across the board. And I think the project is going exactly the way that the users want to see it go.
I would just add too, I did take a picture of the audience, and there was about 75 folks in attendance, and they were all very focused on the actual project itself. It wasn't I don't want to say it, a non-specific crowd. They were really there for that particular presentation, at least in my estimation.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Any questions for Kelly, Adam, or Bob? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, FuzionView Update, another tag team event. I'll start out with the overview, and then Bob's going to come in and talk about where we are with the handoff to OCC. Adam can fill in on what's going on at OCC and future development plans. And then last but not least, Kelly's got some marketing stuff that she'll be unveiling or talking about. So here we go with the overview. And I am just having all kinds of difficulty today getting this thing to operate correctly. Okay, so the update for the overview is FuzionView development, as you can see there, given the listing since March 14th of 2024. So just a little bit over 14 months of work. We're at 99% across the board. The fill out piece here is going to be the final acceptance by OCC and then implementation as a real production item. So, the core software is the software itself, and project development is the things that are around the edge supporting it. For instance, being the development of the Pioneer partners and handing them off to OCC. The next thing up on the agenda here, FuzionView website. The agreement on that has been that this website will be focused on the open source product, and we will shortly begin finishing out development here where it will be available for both the delivery of the software, some additional material that I'll show you here in a second. But as we began the process of building this and over a year ago and trying to figure out what pieces ought to be there and the rest of it, this site's mutated a half a dozen times, and it'll be down to what we consider finally its final state here when we move ahead with transitioning it to being solely focused on the open source approach. Kelly and team will again talk about how they're changing a marketing approach for something that's specific to GSOC. As we've talked about in the past, we're in the first draft of a set of 5 different documents that will be available on the FuzionView website. Frequently asked questions, a security overview discussion, technical specifications for FuzionView, getting ready for FuzionView, what you'd need to do to be able to participate in the use of the software, and then connecting to FuzionView for the first time. We have a handshake agreement with OCC. Whatever they like here, they're free to steal. And I think you'll see some of these things repurposed and appropriately repackaged for use over within the GSOC OCC effort. We are also involved right now in ongoing discussions with a firm called Cyber9s. What this basically is a code review to the degree of of making sure that as we have packaged things, that there are not any issues either from the standpoint of security and or a lien on a potential license that's out there. So that discussion is ongoing, and we're looking to get are the sleeves rolled up on that part of the project and get it finished off here as quickly as we can. In the bad news category, PHMSA, if you're not aware of it, was very short fused on their ability to release funding for the fiscal year that starts on October 1st. And as a result of that, they had a very short window for putting in additional apps for the TAG system grants. And that's probably a good thing from our perspective, because the bad news is we had put in a request to get an extension on our funding for the development of the field data collect module. And unfortunately, that was in fact turned down. So we're in, as was more or less described last time we were together, we considered this threat was potentially there. Now we know for sure it is. That leaves us with having to spend $72,575.63 before September 29th, which is the date on which our grant process or grant acceptance from PHMSA expires, which means that the development team is going to be pretty much in the burn the midnight oil mode to try to get the field data collect module complete before that date. So if you see folks, with big circles under the eyes and the rest of it, that's a reason. And we're actually looking at attempting to onboard some additional personnel to try to make it realistic to get the prototype completed properly and not waste any federal money. So we've got a tall mountain to climb here, but we're going to give it our best shot. Now you're probably going to wonder, well, why in the heck did we go ask for more money? Well, we went knocking on the door over at AWS. They have something out there called an Imagine grant. And within the Imagine grant, there are three major categories. We applied for additional funding under a grant request program that they have that's called Go Faster Further. Or maybe it's Go Further Faster. I don't remember exactly. But the point is, we submitted ahead of the deadline on June 1st. And if we would make it into the second round and then ultimately be selected, it would amount to $150,000 in financial support plus $100,000 in server support. That comes as credits from AWS. The issue here is very much, as I explained with the PHMSA grant, we see that money as being sufficient to get us to the point where there's a working prototype and the structure is there, but to make the project, if you will, finish off. And that's one of the things that AWS is big about, is they're interested in trying to facilitate projects that are underway, show potential, and if you will, they can use for advertising. And I can't think of a better scenario than the value of what this will bring into multiple elements of safety, worker visibility in terms of what they see in the field, and some other things, as you'll see from Bob's report on what the vision is for how the field data collect module is going to be built out. So this grant request is in. We'll know sometime in early July whether or not we have a chance to move forward with this. But again, we look to the money that is still in the piggy bank from PHMSA as at least getting us to the proof of concept and what you would consider a 1.0 delivery. So this kind of gives you the review of the timeline of where things are at as it sits right now. We're visioning that by June 30th, GSOC will be at the point where they'll have signed off on FuzionView as being release candidate capable. There is an additional follow-on piece that would occur by September 30th, and that would be what's called the production sign-off. That means they're actually up and running, and that's just a small incremental final fee that says, yeah, you delivered what you said you were going to deliver, and we're looking to have that by September 30th. But the real, kind of tripwire here is June 30th, because that positions the reality of FuzionView being within OCC's system and being ready to go. July 9th, AWS grant applications for round one. The determination would be made by then. The next UUMPT meeting by September 25th. And the end of PHMSA funding, as I've already briefed, on the 29th. And my term as the chair of the EPC, the Emergency Preparedness Committee of the Minnesota Geospatial Advisory Council, is going to end on that date as well. Any meeting subsequent to September 25th needs to be planned for in using a different approach other than it being a state-sanctioned meeting. September 30th, I already talked about. Then October 1 through 3 is the Minnesota GIS LIS conference in Duluth. That's the GIS types. Bob has submitted a abstract for that event. He's been there 3 or 4 times in the past, but what would be different there is things are actually up and operating. November 20 and 21, Minnesota AWP conference, APWA conference in Prior Lake. Kelly has submitted for an abstract for that, and same thing for December 8th through 10th down in Bloomington, Minnesota, the Association of Minnesota Counties annual conference. And then we look to have by the end of the year the final release of FuzionView as open source product where anybody and everybody can come along, grab it, and do what they want to do with it. So that would be all I have. Are there any questions? Going once, going twice. It takes.
Steve,
Go ahead.
it's Steve from Sumdex. So the open source software, once that's available, what would that entail? Like, could could Pelican Core pick it up and use it for their call centers, or can individual call centers pick it up and
Open source means anybody that wants it can grab it. Now, Bob may give a little bit different spin to it, but that's the whole idea of, when Barb, initially launched this effort, her concern was it didn't make sense to do something that would be just available to GSOC, but to publish the software, have it available with adequate documentation, which we've worked very, very hard on, so that anybody can come along, figure out how to use it, but more importantly, figure out how to integrate it into their system.
perfect?
So that's the whole thrust of it.
Yeah, that's what I expected. I just wanted to confirm. So that's great.
No,
Thank you.
that's where we're headed.
And Bob, this is really in your basket, but my understanding is you've actually started loading the open source software into Git, so it is publicly available to at least some extent.
Right now, it's in a closed Git repository.
Oh,
When
it
we
is
actually,
closed. Okay.
it's closed right now, just for the developers. But when the final packaging is done, it'll be turned on publicly and it'll be available for everybody.
So people don't even have to, kind of the point of that is people won't even have to go through FuzionView or Shared Geo. They'll be able to publicly pull these files, see how things work, read the documentation, and build out implementations independently.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
And again, to kind of reinforce that, Adam, just think of the FuzionView website as being the informational node, not the, if you will, storehouse of the data or any, of the program or whatever. But yeah.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay, Bob, you're up.
Not too much more to say. On the side of the OCC handoff, we're right on the very tail end of it. We're waiting for as Steve indicated, the release candidate to be signed off. Basically, when the release candidate is signed off, that's the beginning of the production version, which is another sign-off point, but it's just a little chunk of money. But that's basically going to amount to OCC saying that we've got everything situated the way that they were expecting it from the, when we first designed everything and put everything together, I don't know, what is it, almost 3 years now back when we first started designing things. So the FuzionView engine itself and the handoff to OCC is kind of in the, right now we're waiting for OCC to sign off on it. They're actually, and Adam can expound on what I'm going to say here, but they're actually in the process of running it internally and getting it configured to made up to their system. They're going to initially be testing with a link into the FuzionView system and displaying the information from the map view the way that we've done it from the open source side. But further on in their development, they'll actually be building it out so that the information will display on their internal mapping system. And that's where it's at right now.
Sure, I can pick it up from there too, Bob. So as you mentioned, the beta is fully complete for the linking and sharing. We've got that running, and we're slowly bringing users into that pool. The release candidate, I'd say we're about 25% through the work required for a full implementation within the OCC system. I suspect we'll actually have the sign off quite a bit sooner than the June 30th that was highlighted there. I think it'll happen this week. I'm pushing the developers to just work through all the code and confirm that there isn't anything outstanding, so we don't have to wait for the full install to sign off on that. And the impression I got from John over our last couple discussions is that he thinks we're there. His boss is working through an evaluation of that now, so we can get final sign off. But from our perspective, everything is where we need it, and it looks like we're making progress at the pace expected, which was originally targeting having the full install complete in 2 months, and we're about 2 weeks into that.
Any questions for Adam or Bob? Going once. It's your chance. Going twice. Gone. Okay, Kelly.
Hi, everybody, again. So from the perspective of next steps with regard to the launch of this product through the GSAC system, we've rebranded it as its kind of like own identity. So it will now be called Site X-Ray, powered by FuzionView. And it will be a GSAC product. You access it through our system, obviously, but potentially available through other OCC states around the country as well. Our next steps, like we said before, slow and steady. So this summer we'll be testing with several partners on every end of use, and some of you are on this call and I'll be following up with you shortly. But our hope is to find design phase projects to partner with design firms and facility operators like MnDOT to test the system out once it is live on our site, and then also doing it from the contractor perspective as well. We've been meeting with all kinds of municipalities around the state, some of whom were part of our pioneer partners. We were meeting with all of them actually to make sure to kind of transition to the next step, but then also receiving a lot of outreach from people who are interested around the state as well. So having those meetings, we're developing an outreach plan that focuses primarily first on municipalities and the networks of individuals and companies and operators and all players that we have identified earlier as potentially interested in this. And then we're also going to be seeking validators around the state. So really reaching out to associations at all levels to help, essentially be ambassadors for the program. And then the last piece of this is really getting our ducks in a row in order to do all these things. And so we're finalizing a bunch of materials, including our facility operator and end user agreements, and how we're going to manage those. We've completed an overview deck or a PowerPoint slide deck, and are working on completing a marketing leave behind, if you will, that people can kind of take with them with this new branding on it. So that's kind of where we are right now, and hopefully mapping out a more solid timeline in the next month or so for this outreach, and looking at like a 2-year implementation and outreach plan across the state.
All right. Any questions for Kelly? Going once, going twice.
Hey, Steve, Brad here. I got a question. Hey, Kelly, you talked about contract. I heard you say contractors, agencies, or consultants. So have you actually had one city agent or city, county, or MnDOT, or one contractor or one consultant try your tool out on one project?
That is the next step. So we're in the process of talking with a couple different groups of people, but we've talked with the city of Glencoe, for instance, who's interested in facilitating testing with contractors in their municipality. And then also, I think our original plan was really to tap into MnDOT and WSB's participation to find a project that would allow us to test kind of from in the design phase of a project.
As you know, you submitted something to APWA, and I think that is absolutely essential that we need to bring those people to the table if we present at APWA. So we can talk about this offline, but
Great.
many people are aware of this tool, but I think to help show that next step, I think it's essential to have at least one of those three types of organizations at the table with you.
Great. That's a good note. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay. It takes us down to, we're well ahead of schedule, as you can see, which probably makes everybody very happy. Field data collect. However, you're going to have a lot of questions, I think, after you see Bob run through his presentation. So, Bob, I'm going to stop and you can take over running the show.
All right. So I've just got a few slides that I wanted to run through, basically kind of describing our design approach. For a higher level view, the point of what we're trying to build here is this field data collection system is completely separate from FuzionView. So think of it as a completely separate product. The FuzionView engine was all designed with the idea that we were pulling all this information together from the data providers and sharing it and presenting it through the FuzionView output. The field data collect side of it is the reverse of that. Wherever we need to, we want to provide the capability for the field users to be able to upload data that they collect out in the field related to a particular ticket. So this is going in the other direction. It's going to be a standalone system. We're going to be running it through shared geo. The data that is going to be collected will be stored there, and it'll be available and linked via the ticket ID that comes over from the OCC system. So the same ID that's applied to the ticket on the Gopher State One Call system, that's what all of the information that's collected from the field will be bound to. So we're setting up these different tools. This is everything that you see here originated from Travis's original list for all the field stuff that he thought was pertinent for building this field data collect application. So he's kind of the primary moving force on the initial design. And what I'm going to kind of go through, and I've only got like 5 or 6 slides. The idea here is just I broke out each individual tool into its own slide. So this first one is about the active tickets. So by organization and or individual user and or, the idea is that you're going to have a list of tickets that are available to you based on the fact that your particular organization shared some data with that ticket. So the idea there is that if data was pulled from your internal systems and your services into the FuzionView system, and there's data that's there, you'll be able to see that ticket polygon inside of the field data collect ticket list. You'll have the option of seeing it as a tabular list or a map view. And then in the map view, you'll be able to toggle the map follow on, follow off kind of thing. The idea being that if you've got a GPS on your device out in the field and you want the map to follow you, you'll be able to have that, you'll be able to turn that on and it'll follow you. And as you're moving around out in the field, the map will automatically follow you. That'll be part of the map display. And then Further down the line, user options and filters that we can or won't display kind of thing. There's different things that we're going to add on different kinds of on the separate tools here. But on this particular, the active tickets list, you'll have the option of displaying the information based on, you'll be able to have different kinds of sorting algorithms here. So you'll be able to display the planning tickets, the meet tickets, dig tickets, emergency tickets. These are basically classes that are already existing in the ticketing system that OCC provides. But the point of it is that, you know, we have got these other options here that we can add into the views as needed out in the field. For all intents and purposes right now, we're really focused on this middle column and getting this foundational piece put together. From the tool perspective, the right column is what we're going to be kind of going through in the second pass as we start developing things. I'm going to run through all of these real quick, and then I'll take questions at the end. The next tool is going to be basically just to create a polygon, so a site boundary. This tool is just going to be for either drawing a polygon on a map, or you can actually walk a polygon around a site. So if you've got a GPS device or mechanism of grabbing location values like on your phone, you can just walk around, basically start and stop controls will be added in there, and the idea will be that you could place an ID or a name on this polygon that you record. Simple tool, that's it. It's all about just creating the polygon out in the field. There is a reason why it's in a very simplified form here. I'm calling it a site boundary, not necessarily a dig ticket boundary, and you'll see why with the next tool description here. So the next tool here is a new ticket request. Very near term, it's going to be a link into the Gopher State One Call system. In other words, the button will just send you over to Gopher State One Call to make a new ticket request. In the future, we've already talked with Gopher State and OCC about the mechanisms that they've got on available to us already for pre-populating the ticket request with the user ID data and some of their metadata, and adding a polygon boundary. So the tool here that I talked about, creating polygon with a name on it, we can use that name and add that name to select from the polygon list that the users have made out into the field, and use that to populate the request for a new ticket on the OCC systems. Next tool is about uploading. This is a file uploader. This is going to be bound to that ticket ID and the user. So it'll be stored up on the server based on those two criteria. And it's all about different kinds of file types. So these files can be used for a bunch of different things, but the main thrust of it is discovery and documenting of unknown field infrastructure, or things that were found out in the field that were unexpected when they got there. The idea is to make it as easy as possible to kind of pass up information upstream. Could be text, voice messaging, could be photos, videos, GPS tracks. You know, but the idea is it could be just a GPS track file. We don't need to be worrying about, in this middle column anyway, from this initial kind of pass at the development, we're not going to worry about how a GPS track might be formatted to be like displayed on a map. We're just going to allow for the different kinds of files to be uploaded and bound and stored on the server to that ticket ID. So, and then I've got LiDAR on there at the bottom. In the future, the kinds of things that we can do with these different kinds of things is do some kind of processing on the server after the files have been uploaded. So we can, on a GPS track, for example, we can process it and set it up so that it can be mapped out on a, you can actually see it as a layer on top of a base map. Same thing with the LiDAR. We can actually do the 3D positioning if we've got survey control, that kind of stuff. We can make that into a whole separate process on the server for managing these different kinds of file type uploads. This next tool is called the field strike reporting, or we've done some kind of damage out in the field and we need to report it. The idea there is that we've got some kind of a form that we fill out, or we send them into a service that actually allows them to fill in a form. Also, the idea here long-term would be to have a partial pre-population of the dirt report based on the user metadata, organization metadata, that kind of thing. We'll see where that goes. This one's a little bit fuzzy on who's going to own the end data and how that's all going to manifest long term. But we do have this in as a tool of that is in the toolbox. And then we've got this feature download. This is the tool that's almost identical to the same tool that we built in the FuzionView engine for the ticket viewer. It's almost word for word the same thing that we've got in there. So this will be the feature download, and these are all of the features that are going to be available on a per ticket basis for being able to pull the information. The data that's in here will only be available as long as the FuzionView system has it available. So the idea here is that those feature data are going to have the same kind of limitations that the FuzionView server's got as far as how long the data is held and all that kind of stuff. And then there could be some additional type for formatting the data for download that we can add later on. So that would be one of those future things that we can add on. That's all I've got. Are there any questions for what you saw there so far?
Bob, it's Steve.
Mhm.
Curious. So if we have, let's say, a Sioux company out there that's working on behalf of a utility owner, and they put in a one call, like a design ticket request,
Mhm.
for example.
Yep.
Right. So then with FuzionView, we would receive the files from the utility owners, conflated on a common base map, make that available to the Sioux company. Now they may be running their own software. It could be SVR Collector, it could be GeoLantis 360, could be PointMan or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Then they're going to collect the data. How do we get that data that they've collected back to each utility owner as a separate file so they can?
Yeah, so the data that is uploaded with the field data collector system is going to be stored on a server that ShareGeo will be running, and it'll be accessible via the dig ticket ID. So if you have a dig ticket ID and you send it into the field data collection server, you'll see all of the data that has been uploaded in relation to that dig ticket out in the field.
Okay,
And
so
it'll just be listed out, and they'll be able to do whatever they want with it.
right, but if I read correctly, so every file that we receive from each utility owner is going to have a unique identifier on it.
Yeah,
So that
you'll know the user that because they're going to have a login to use the field data collection tool set. There'll be a user and there'll be an organization ID.
but I'm talking about from the utility owner side, they're going to submit the data to FuzionView based on the ticket request, right? So they'll send a shape file, let's say in a CAD file and a KML file or whatever.
Yeah, that's a different workflow. The field data collection is set up to do that, but we're really working from the perspective that if you're using the field data collection tool, that's how you would upload. We're just trying to make it easier for the field personnel to be able to upload that stuff. If the data is going to be coming from another source, we can set that up as well, just like we've done with the field data, or just like we did with the FuzionView engine. So we can
Right.
set that up as well. But that's not one of our primary design workflows, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
At least not at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just trying to picture in my mind, like, how do we make sure that the data in the field gets back to each utility owner without compromising security or integrity or?
Yeah. The idea there is that none of the data will be even uploaded until somebody's got a login, first of all.
Right.
And then the data that does get stored on the field data collection server is only going to be accessible by whoever, that organization and that person, that uploaded it. And the data will be accessible as a service linked into the FuzionView ticket itself, or the original dig ticket, I guess, the Gopher State One Call ticket ID.
Right.
So if
Okay.
you've got a ticket ID, you'll be able to get at the information. It's up to the data providers that are looking at the information to decide what they want to keep and what they don't want to keep.
Right. I guess my question was, how do they receive it back? How do they even get notified that this file's been updated or there's a new file that they need to consume or
Yeah,
queue?
we're gonna have to work that out with Gopher State. That's
Okay.
That's a new capability.
Perfect. Thank you.
We've had discussions about that as well. But it will be available as a service. So there might be a way that we can default link into it. Maybe it'll just say no data, kind of thing on most of the tickets. But the ones that will have data, there'll be a link available here. There's data available. Go to the FTC server and
Right.
take a look
So
at
that'll
it,
be
kind
a
of thing.
notification, essentially.
Yep, that would be the simplest form that I
Yeah.
can see of it being integrated.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Bob, Brad, question. Does this assume that all of the data on any project is automated?
No.
Well,
From
then
the
let me give you maybe just here's where I'm going with the question. So the intent would be, so for example, if you've got the public utilities, you've got the sewer, the water, and whoever else you've got there. So the intent would be each of those individually would be shooting the data over to you? Or how would that
Yes,
happen?
yeah. Basically the idea is that they'll be able to register for the field data collection tool set use, and whoever does that registration and sets up an account will be able to start using it and pushing data back upstream based on a Gopher State One Call ticket ID.
So kind of what that gets to really what my question is does every so in larger organizations, sewer, water, traffic, street, et cetera, are all
Mhm.
different parts of the organization.
Yep.
So in St. Paul, for example, does that assume everybody is on board to ship all their data over there, or what's your thought
Well,
there?
the way that my design philosophy is working here on that particular point is that if we're organizing the information on the server by the user and or the organization name. So it could be just an individual user on a small company, it's one guy that's running this digital side of things, or it could be an organization like a municipality where you got different departments doing different things all under one organizational name. If you're a user that's inside of an organization, every user inside that organization will see every other user's information from that organization. So if you've got a ticket that went in through Parks will be able to see the tickets that go in through Public Works. That's the way that I'm envisioning this working here. So it's going to be the display of all of the ticket information will be at the organizational level, but all of the data management and storage will be at the user level.
Okay, no, I mean, I think that makes sense. And then what about the private utilities, telephone, gas, and electric? How do you see those pieces functioning? As you know, a pilot project that was over in Hennepin County a few years ago died for the very reason that the private utilities did not want to share the location of their underground utilities.
Yeah, this is all voluntary. I mean, they're,
Yep.
the bigger deal here with the field data collection, actually, this is a more in a couple senses, it's more closed up than the FuzionView engine is actually. So this field data collection is a little bit more locked down from the perspective of sharing data. So the data coming up from the field is a little bit more tightly controlled than it is going back upstream, at least with the workflows that we're planning on.
Okay.
That could change down the line, but right now that's where we're going.
Okay, good. Thanks, Bob.
Yep. Justin?
Question along the lines of like, I've not been a part of this. I've been actually doing a similar project over in Wisconsin, and seeing the challenges with the accuracy. Who is going to be monitoring, or is there thresholds for accuracy for the GPS collection of the utilities? Who's going to monitor that or set those thresholds, and who's going to be constantly updating that or managing that?
Well, there's not the data that's being pulled up from the field and stored. We're not really we're not, it's, how do I want to say this? It's not the project's, it's not a project mandate that we're going to be validating that type of quality information. That doesn't mean that we can't make an attribute or something to manage that. If that's what the leadership group wants us to do, we can do something very similar to the way we set it up in the FuzionView collection engine, where we've got a attribute that's applied either at a feature level or a data set level, saying this is the accuracy that we think the data is at.
Yeah, just the challenge that I see that, I mean, if you have one accuracy level and I have another accuracy level, and all of a sudden we're not all geospatially correct, we're not all laying in the same spot.
Mhm.
We're supposed to be, we're going to have data out there that's not going to be correct, right?
Yeah, it's not, we're not, how do I want to say this? We're not trying to force people into uploading data that is survey quality or even near survey quality. That's not the point of the project. The idea is to be able to just be able to share data easily, and with some kind of a disclaimer saying that, we're not just basically iterating what I just said. We're not trying to say that this is like design quality locational data. But the point of it is that we want to reference and remark about what's out in the field and say, this is what we're looking at. These are the things that we're seeing. Here's a photo, blah, blah, blah. we're not necessarily trying to design things from the field and run this thing from a survey level. That doesn't mean that we can't work with survey level data, but
Exactly.
at this point right now, it's just about exchanging information from the field and getting it back up to the data providers. The data providers can handle any kind of positional accuracy and relocating of things that they need to. We can't depend on a phone GPS, for example, to give us information that's going to be much better than, like a 10-foot accuracy. Another kind of bigger picture thing too is that 100-foot buffer that we came up with for the FuzionView engine and cutting off things. That sort of relates to this same kind of problem that you're talking about, where we don't necessarily know exactly where things are. But if we're in the neighborhood and that 100-foot buffer gets us there, you can say that this stuff is out there. But positional accuracy, we're just going to have to say that we don't know what the positional accuracy is on a lot of it. But where it is available, we can relay that information.
Yeah, if I may, Bob, this has been quite a topic of discussion for some decks as well. And one of the things is, as part of the permit process, for instance, a DOT could say, when you install stuff in our right of way, we want you to collect the data ASC 7522, for instance, as a standard, the data collection standard, which means that you're going to have quality level A, B, or C identified as an attribute, which each of those records. Even for existing utilities, it's going to be ASE 38. So as long as the person that's collecting the data in the field is a surveyor, and they assign that accuracy to that record and sign it off, as if it's a SUE company, let's say, they're going to stamp it and sign it, and they'll guarantee that quality level. But the quality level is only for the utility that's actually doing the work. However, they can still send that quality level record to each utility owner that also has assets in the field that they've identified the location of, but that engineer stamp no longer applies. So they're not liable for the quality of that record, but it can still put the attribution to it in terms of the quality level and accuracy level.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We just pass that stuff through. So we're not responsible for the accuracy, but we can, as an attribute, we can put in those, we can pass through the quality and accuracy levels as part of the record.
Yep. And for any kind of information that is collected or infrastructure that's placed, moving forward, that will work, but you still have to mix it with old records as well. So that's kind of where the conundrum comes in. It's like, okay, well, how do we manage this long term and do the presentation of the information? And that goes to Justin's question. It's like you can get really mixed up if you're thinking one thing is as accurate as another thing. So again, we have to figure out how we're going to present this information with that locational accuracy. Or we just basically say, all right, we're not responsible for the location stuff. Look, we're just saying that this stuff is out there.
So. Well, that's kind of where we are, though, Bob. So,
yep.
I mean, we're looking at the data that's coming in now, and I'd say only less than 5% of them has any ASCII letter to it. And I think that's going to be the way it is going forward. Nobody's reading these engineering things. This is not engineering. We're not expecting engineering grade data to come in. It's like whatever is being presented by the facility operators, how we're going to take it. And we're going to go ahead and project it correctly, but that's not the FuzionView's responsibility. If junk out is, how we're going to receive it too. So if you're not getting the right equipment, not setting it up right, or not using it right, that's not up to us. We're just taking your data and projecting it. So.
Over the long term, I think all the hardware is going to get better and better at all of this locational stuff, and you'll see everything improve over time.
Yeah, Travis, it's 100%. So right now, those records don't have a lot of quality or accuracy level attribution to them. So
it's just like locating field. You can bring on a new locator, then go out there and put paint on the ground, but that doesn't mean they're correct. So over the series of years it takes, to get a good experienced operator, it's going to be the same thing with GNSS or GIS.
Yeah, precisely.
That answer your question, Justin?
Hey, Bob, Brad here again. Colorado, quite a couple of years ago, passed a high accuracy law for the location of their underground utilities. Have you talked to those people at the state of Colorado?
Yeah, we've talked to Colorado DOT. Early on, we were talking with them about.
Well, yeah, it's the Colorado DOT that has this high accuracy requirement, which maybe gets to the previous issue that was brought up here.
Yeah, and I think they're I don't know if they're doing it as a comprehensive requirement. I think it's more along the lines of on a project by project basis, but it has been working out very well for them at that level.
Yeah, I believe it's all Colorado DOT projects, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Not every project in Colorado DOT projects.
Correct. Yep. Did that answer your question, Justin?
Not exactly, because, with conflation and everything, we are going to be looking at some very big challenges. Right? I mean, you take a look at the conflation issues that happen on each of the mapping systems for each utility, right? Each utility company has their own parameters. There's conflation where stuff is 1,000 feet off, right? And it doesn't lay there in the real world.
Well, I'm anticipating that because we've got this map following kind of tool or option, anything that you collect, you'll actually be able to see right on the map. So if something is 1,000 feet off, they're going to know right off the bat. But I'm not anticipating any errors to that extent. But getting past this 30-foot level, that's the thing where you got to kind of worry about it, or the 10-meter.
You're talking about the markup tool, though, Bob, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything that's collected out in the field. If we've got
Yeah,
anything that's using a
it's the
GPS
markup.
in the field, we'll be able to display it on the map. So they'll know right off the bat, how far off it is.
But you have no matter however you do it, you will have what I call them flyers when you're taking your points.
Yes. Yeah, you'll have these odd shots that'll
They
like
will
jump
drop.
all over the place. Yep.
Yep. And it's a beast. It's a
Mhm.
beast. I will tell you from firsthand knowledge, after doing this, it is a beast, and it needs to be controlled at the beginning before you get to a quarter of the way into it.
I think that's why we're doing the markup tool, Justin. I mean, all these manufacturers and app developers are coming in their own direction. They're coming in blind and doing their own thing and not fully understanding the full picture. And so we want one app that kind of rules them all, so to speak, and share that with the world, where not just the facility operators can use it with whatever device they're running, but also the excavators have something easy to use. Because now, when you're talking excavators, you're having a tough time with your facility operators or your own techs. Think about an excavator that's jumping out of a backhoe and you tell them, hey, go ahead and take a shot of your hydrovac and get a good GPS point on it. We got to make something super simple, but yet super accurate, right? So it's just, that's our goal, is to just have one thing that rules them all, and also control the one call ticket process and at the same time. Did I just confuse everybody and just put everybody to sleep, or what?
I think we're good. I think we got it across, but
yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Bob. I knew you would have a few more minutes than originally planned. All right. Well, thanks for all the great comments as well. That's very helpful to hear the concerns on developing something like this, and I'm sure Bob and Travis are going to do their best to make sure that.
Well, my takeaway from this is that I didn't get any new questions, so that's cool. It's all stuff that we've talked about before.
Okay, well, that's a good marker. We like it. All right, so I think it takes us down to let's see what we got going on here. Field data collect. You can or cannot see my screen. Yep. Okay, just saw the note go by that you can see my screen. So that was Bob. Supposed to go to 2:01, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule. Now I can't get. I'm having a rough day here, folks. I hope you'll hang with me. All right, here we go. We're down to the open discussion. And so additional comments, announcements, other business, Kelly guidance. So what do you have for him, Kelly? What do you want to hear about?
Oh, I don't know. I'd love to just hear what people's impressions are. I think one question that I've had too is we've gone out and started talking to people is, just what are the most intriguing aspects of this from in terms of selling, getting more people to kind of sign on to providing their data, et cetera. And I know this gets more complicated with different types of facility operators, but we're mostly focusing on municipalities at the beginning and just kind of curious what people are thinking about when they think, what the most salient arguments are for that. So that's my one piece of guidance, but otherwise I don't really have much else.
Well, two things come to mind for me, Kelly. One is kind of the various data sharing agreements that are going to be needed based on the industry type and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that we can leverage what you guys are doing in Minnesota and just extend, if you will, the reach for each of those data sharing agreements.
Absolutely. We've been working on those. Some of the folks on the call, Megan in particular, from Hinshaw, has been working on these agreements, and I think we have good drafts, but we're definitely seeking feedback on them. So if you're interested in taking a look or providing additional feedback, that would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be pleased to. We've got a couple of guys on our team that are involved in the kind of legal side of it as well. So that's great. The other question is around existing softwares that are out there and being able to integrate with FuzionView. So there's lots of tools out there today that people are using. I'm just wondering if there's going to be like an API that we can leverage that FuzionView is developing, or what? How do we make sure that people can hook up to FuzionView?
I can answer that real quick. The FuzionView side, the engine for collecting information from the data providers, has got a mechanism in place already to specifically handle odd types of information formats. So if you need to connect directly to a particular type of server that outputs information a certain way, the FuzionView engine is already set up to do that. You will have to write the little communications piece of it, but the framework is already in place for that.
Okay, so my question really is around, let's say I put in a design ticket and I'm an engineering house and I run Esri. And I want to pull that into my Esri system. Can I just hook up and display it in my Esri system?
Yes.
Or if I'm running open roads, the same civil street user or whatever.
We went with a simplified approach for that, but the FuzionView engine, the ticket viewer, allows you to pull the features down in a file format that you can just load up into whatever. It's very straightforward.
Perfect. Okay, good.
But not all the information, right, Bob?
Just the feature information that comes on the map. Yep.
Yeah, within the buffer.
Within the ticket boundary and that 100-foot buffer.
Yeah. But you've got an attribution there as well, right? So if I know it's a 16-inch plastic pipe, for instance.
Correct. That's all in the data that's downloaded.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent.
As long as the facility operator displays it.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Steve, you got another question for Michael?
Oh, hey everybody. I just had I'm in the middle of doing a lot of utility coordination with MnDOT, and at the moment I'm in the relocation and permit review process. I was wondering if there would be anything available at that point where the permitted line work could be submitted by either myself as the consultant engineer or the utility owner themselves, and somehow labeled that this is anticipated to be coming in here in the next 6 months. Is anything for permitted work or not?
We've had this conversation about making an engineering version of things. And that's exactly what you're talking about, where you'd basically say, here's all of our proposed projects in the state kind of thing, or in a region or whatever. The tools would allow for that very easily. We don't specifically allow for what you just asked for right now in any of the tools that we built, but this same thought process has come up a couple of times.
Okay. And then the other end of that, in some visits with MnDOT, when the utilities are actually placed for their relocations, they're just not staffed enough to actually get the as-built information pulled in. And so wondering how that process may work.
Also another one that's come up on same kind of framework.
All right.
To tell you the truth though, Michael, I think some of this is actually going to start to manifest inside the field data collection stuff.
Okay, cool.
By being able to allow folks to give you define a work site, it's starting to get exactly what you're talking about. So all we have to do really in the field data collection tools is just say, here, what class do you want to, or ID classification do you want to put on that site boundary? And you can just say, this is a planning boundary. Well, once we've got that in place, then we can make a service that's available for whoever wants to get into the planning side and say, what's going on out in the field in the state. So the more engineering organizations that participate in this, the better picture you're going to have of what's going on out in the field. We run into it a lot in the municipal side of things when we're trying to figure out, all right, we're going to be working in this area. Do we want to go out and grab Excel and have them update their infrastructure as well? That kind of thing. So, and I'm sure that's what you're alluding to, correct?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And like Travis said earlier, it's got to be something simple and easy for them to do as they place their work. And and then I always have the utility verification step where I do that Gopher State One Call just to see if there's any new owners or new projects that may have popped up over the course of 3 to 5 years. I'm working on a design project.
Yep.
Somebody snuck in with a permit or a non-permitted facility, and so I look forward to what this product's going to do. So thank you guys so much.
Yep. It's all bending that way. So thanks. Take it back, Steve.
I think we still need to circle back to Kelly. I think Kelly was interested in hearing comments about the degree to which, folks out there were looking at this and thinking about it in terms of how do we get people on board. I might be putting words in Kelly's mouth, but I think that's where she was trying to get to.
Yeah, that was a quicker way of saying it. Thanks, Steve.
Any more thoughts out there? Because
I've had some discussions today. So, for instance, I was talking to Brenda. Oh gosh, I can't even think of the last name right now. Anyway, Brenda, she's with the Pennsylvania Utility Contractors Association. So she's reaching out to all her members to try and sell them on the idea of this, to say, here's the benefits accruing to contractors, for example. So I'm working with her, putting together a list of and quantifying the benefits from the contractor's perspective. So for each stakeholder group, we're putting together a list of their concerns and how those concerns would be assuaged by the system, and also the benefits that would accrue to them that they might not even be aware of. So for instance, utility owners, and I think you guys are aware of the city of Burnaby that automated the ticket response process. So even for design tickets, it used to take a week to put together for a major design ticket. Now it takes 3 minutes in their system because it's all electronic. And that's only because they've got electronic records and they're using the one call ticket as the vehicle to request and filter and respond to the data request, which is really what we're doing here. So if you think of all the cities in North America that have, they get one call tickets, so if they could automate that response, there's massive savings available to them. So that's just one stakeholder group. Then you can look at engineering companies, locate service providers, just anybody that's out there, all of the utility companies. So that's what we're focused on currently. Just
the last thing we wanted is an abuse of the system, though, too. So, like, if you're planning a project out and you want to know which side of the road's the easiest to go down, just they start calling in a whole bunch of tickets that are really fictitious, but they just wanted to see what's buried around and where they're likely able to put in a facility. And we don't want them to do that. So I think abuse of the system. I think Adam can probably expand on this, but we have thought about that as well.
Well, Travis, the difference is going to be that if it's a design ticket, they don't necessarily have to send her a locate technician. There's where the abuse happens. There's the cost of the utility owner. But if it's just sending a map, that's a different matter.
Yeah, if they're doing a design request, then the map is an acceptable option for response. It would be an issue if they started doing excavation tickets just to get access to the data. That is something we've spent a lot of time contemplating. But that should be pretty visible, I would think, because, at least in the beginning with the limited audience, we'll be able to see if somebody is doing locates that are inconsistent with their past practices.
So, guys, there's an opportunity here too, as well, to say for excavation tickets, they shouldn't be requesting an excavation ticket if they don't have a permit. So if it's on public lands, there has to be a permit in place, which means we could tie that into the permitting process for whoever that entity is that issues a permit. So there's another way to prevent abuse, so just arbitrarily putting in a dig ticket.
We do a lot of work on private land in the right of ways that don't require permits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that doesn't involve the one call process, right?
No, we call thousands of one calls
For private lands?
yep, because we gotta locate the utilities in the right of ways in the ditches.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that's on public land, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
But for private land projects.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. But there
No.
still have to be, I see what you're getting at. Not necessarily
Yeah.
you install.
Well, what I'm getting at is I'm poking a hole in every project will have a permit.
Yeah. Well, even then, that should be a design ticket, right?
Yeah, we do the design. So, I mean, we'd love to use this system when it's up and going and everybody's sharing their data, because it'd be really nice to know where utilities are when we're designing, instead of 48 hours from the spray paint.
No, exactly. The other opportunity here is that anybody with private stuff, like a major manufacturing like Ford or in Dearborn, for instance, could stand up their own kind of ticketing system internally and use FuzionView as the engine actually to drive their internal locates and designs. So it's not necessarily restricted to one calls.
Okay. All right. Any more thoughts out there? This is your final chance to do some tweaking on field data collect, because, as I indicated earlier, 3 months from now, we're going to have, in theory, something that works or doesn't work. So we'll see. One last chance. Going once?
Hey, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Hey, just for Kelly, Minnesota AWWA is coming up in September. That might be a good opportunity to get in front of some more municipalities.
Oh, thank you.
And then also one to keep in mind is the Minnesota Rural Water Association annual conference is the beginning of March. I would certainly reach out to them and try and get on their agendas as well. That's going to put you in front of a lot of the smaller municipalities. We're going to miss them along the way, just because they don't attend a lot of these bigger organizational things. So
Great. Thank you for those two. I had the rural water on my list, but I didn't have the other one. So thank you.
yep.
Did I see the Minnesota Transportation Conference?
That is definitely on the list.
Okay.
Just remember, on the transportation conference, it happens next March, but you've got to submit, or Kelly, I'm saying this to you, you've got to submit it, the write-up in October. So we make the decision on what is presented about the 1st of November. So just as a timeline reminder.
Thank you.
Great comments. Are there any more like that? That's the stuff we need.
The other one that's coming up quickly, not sure if you can still get on their agenda, is the MWOA annual conference in Grand Rapids. That's the Minnesota Wastewater Operators Association. That will be in July.
I would guess you're about 6 months late on that one.
And 4.
But thanks for the comment, Paul. That's helpful. Build a master calendar. Okay. Unless there's anything else from the floor. Going once, going twice.
Steve, Kelly, and Bob, can I ask for you guys to stay after class by chance? It's about Glencoe. I just had some questions and stuff. So
Okay.
okay.
No problem.
You didn't say me, right, Travis?
Yeah, I think you're fine. You can go home.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay, so Kelly, what do you got for guidance?
I look forward to our next meeting, and thanks everybody for your input today. It's really helpful.
Okay. All right, next meeting, Thursday, September 25th, 2025, 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Anyone else? Kelly's given us, I think, final comments. Appreciate your efforts, everybody. And here's a quote to carry away. Thought a little humor for today. I'd like to live like a poor man, but with lots of money. Pablo Picasso. All right. Thanks, everybody.